There is a machine in China that looks like something a child would draw if you asked them to imagine a monster. It is 91 meters long, longer than a football field. It weighs 580 tons, heavier than 4 blue whales stacked together. It crawls across the countryside on enormous wheels, and when it reaches a gap between two concrete pillars, it does something that should not be physically possible. It reaches out across thin air, grabs a 900-ton slab of bridge, and sets it down in place.
We don't manufacture anything anymore in this country. We do healthcare, we do lots of different services, but the big service is manufacturing. Everything's made in China, for the most part, between China, India, and others, but China in particular. And frankly, they're sending stuff over here, and we're paying for it. And, you know, it's sort of interesting. Very little tax, if any, paid, and yet you can't do business in China.
Perfectly, in a matter of hours. The Chinese call it the Iron Monster, and it builds bridges across rivers, valleys, and mountains at a speed that has left the rest of the world standing still with its mouth open. We are talking about a machine that does in a few hours what an American construction crew would need weeks to accomplish. And the Iron Monster is just one machine in an arsenal of construction technology so far ahead of the rest of the planet that it is difficult to even compare. China has built a 10-story apartment building in 28 hours, a 57-story skyscraper in 19 days, a 30-story hotel in 15 days, while a single tower in London or New York takes 3 full years to complete. That gap between how China builds and how the rest of the world builds is what this video is about. And by the end, you will understand exactly why engineers call this a 50-year head start, and why America, for all its wealth and all its history, is still, in many ways, only dreaming about what China is already doing every single day. Hit subscribe and let's get into it. Let's start with the Iron Monster, because once you understand how it works, you understand the entire philosophy that makes China's construction machine unstoppable. Its real name is the SLJ 900/32, built by the Beijing Wow Joint Machinery Company. And the problem it solves is one of the oldest and hardest problems in all of construction. How do you build a bridge across a place where there is nothing underneath to stand on? A deep river, a steep gorge, a flooded valley? For thousands of years, the answer involved scaffolding, cranes, barges, and armies of workers risking their lives high above the ground, slowly piecing a bridge together one dangerous step at a time. It was slow, it was expensive, and it killed people. China looked at that ancient problem and built a machine to make it disappear. Here is how the Iron Monster actually works, and it is genuinely beautiful to watch. The machine sits on top of the section of bridge that is already finished. In front of it is a gap, with the next concrete pillar standing alone in the distance. The monster extends a long temporary arm forward until it touches the far pillar, creating a bridge for itself. Then it picks up a massive prefabricated bridge segment, a single piece of road that can weigh up to 900 tons, lifts it, carries it forward along its own body, reaches out over the empty gap, and lowers that piece into place at a crawling, careful speed of about 5 kilometers per hour. Then it inches itself forward onto the new section it just laid and does it all again and again and again. The bridge builds itself span by span, marching across the landscape like a mechanical caterpillar, laying down its own path as it goes. Now picture what that replaces. In most of the world, building that same elevated bridge would mean cranes on either side, scaffolding rising up from the valley floor, weeks of assembly per section, and constant danger. The Iron Monster does it from the top, needs no ground access below, and places each span in hours. This is why China has been able to do something no other nation in history has come close to. It has carpeted its entire country in elevated high-speed rail viaducts, thousands upon thousands of kilometers of bridges, because it built the machine that makes building bridges fast, repeatable, and almost routine. But the Iron Monster, as incredible as it is only the beginning. Because if you think building a bridge in hours is impressive, wait until you see what China does with entire skyscrapers. There is a company in the city of Changsha called Broad Group. They started out making air conditioners, and then they turned their attention to the construction industry and proceeded to humiliate the entire global building establishment. In 2021, Broad Group erected a fully functional 10-story apartment building, start to finish, in 28 hours and 45 minutes. Read that again. Not 28 days, 28 hours. A complete 10-story residential tower, with wiring, plumbing, windows, and balconies assembled in less time than it takes most people to finish a weekend project. And that was not a fluke or a one-time stunt. Broad had already built a 57-story skyscraper in just 19 days, going up at a rate of 3 full floors every single day. They built a 30-story hotel in 15 days. And in their most recent demonstration, they assembled a 26-story tower in just 5 days using only 100 workers. How is this even possible? The secret is a complete reversal of how the entire world has built things for the last 100 years. Traditionally, you bring raw materials to a construction site, an empty, muddy lot, and you assemble the whole building out in the open, exposed to rain, wind, and cold, piece by piece, in the most inefficient environment imaginable. Broad Group flipped that logic on its head. They build almost the entire building inside a factory first. Each room is a complete prefabricated steel module with the electrical wiring, the air conditioning, the pipes, and the interior finishes already installed before it ever leaves the plant. Their production line can finish one complete module every 21 minutes. These finished modules, sized to fit on a standard truck, are then shipped to the site and stacked and bolted together like the most sophisticated set of Lego bricks ever created. The on-site work that used to take years is reduced to days because the building shows up 90% finished. And because the structure is built from a patented stainless steel system, some of these buildings can even be unbolted, loaded back onto trucks, and reassembled somewhere else entirely. A skyscraper you can move. Now hold that image in your mind, a 26-story tower rising in 5 days, and turn to look at how the rest of the developed world builds. Because the contrast is where the title of this video stops being an exaggeration and starts being a simple statement of fact. In London or New York, a comparable high-rise building routinely takes around 3 years to complete. 3 years against China's 5 days for a building of similar height. Even accounting for differences in size and finish, that is not a small gap. That is a chasm. And it is not because American or British engineers lack the talent. The United States built the Empire State Building in just over a year, back in 1931, and once led the entire world in fast, ambitious construction. So what happened? The honest answer is that the West got tangled in its own systems. Layers of permitting that can take years before a single shovel hits the ground. Environmental reviews, zoning battles, community objections, and lawsuits that can freeze a project for a decade. Fragmented private contractors with no incentive to invest in the kind of giant, expensive, purpose-built machines that only pay off when you are building constantly at massive scale. America rarely builds the iron monster because America rarely commits to building 1,000 identical bridges in a row the way China does. And that points to the real engine behind China's 50-year lead. It is not just the machines, it is the will to use them at a scale nobody else can match. China decided, as a matter of national strategy, to build more infrastructure faster than any country in human history. That decision created enormous, continuous demand. That demand justified inventing the iron monster and Broad's factory lines. Because when you are building bridges and towers every single day across an entire continent, machines that cost a fortune suddenly make perfect economic sense. The scale created the machines, and the machines accelerated the scale in a self-reinforcing loop that the fragmented, slow-moving construction industries of the West simply cannot replicate. Now, to be fair and to be precise, there are real reasons the West builds the way it does, and even some Chinese builders acknowledge the trade-offs. Some critics point out that America does not need to build as many new bridges because as a long-developed nation, it already has most of the bridges it needs. There is truth in that. And the West's slower, more deliberate process with its stringent inspections and individual engineer accountability is partly designed to encourage a kind of careful innovation and safety verification. Even Broad Group's own founder has spoken about the tension between speed and standards. But here is what that critique misses. China is not sacrificing safety for speed. The Iron Monster places spans with millimeter precision. Broad's buildings are engineered to survive magnitude 9 earthquakes, built from steel in a controlled factory environment that is often more precise and more consistent than messy open-air construction ever could be. The speed is not recklessness. The speed is the result of better systems, smarter machines, and the courage to completely rethink how building is done. While the West treats its slow pace as a sign of caution, China has proven you can be fast and safe at the same time if you are willing to reinvent the entire process. That willingness to reinvent is not a weakness in China's approach. It is the whole reason it leads. And once you put all of it together, the iron monster, the factory-built skyscrapers, the thousands of kilometers of self-laying bridges, you understand what this story has really been about from the start. Because it was never just about machines. What China has actually built is not a fleet of impressive equipment. It is a completely different relationship with the act of building itself. In most of the world, construction is still treated as a slow, custom, one-of-a-kind craft where every project starts from scratch and fights through years of friction. China turned construction into a high-speed industrial process, like manufacturing cars or phones, where buildings and bridges roll off production lines and snap together on site. That is the 50-year leap. It is not that China has slightly better cranes. It is that China stopped thinking of a building as a thing you slowly assemble and started thinking of it as a product you rapidly manufacture. And once you make that mental leap, everything changes. The skyline can rise in days. The bridge can cross the valley in hours. The country can be rebuilt in a single generation. America, sitting on more wealth and more engineering history than almost any nation on Earth, still mostly builds the old way. One slow custom project at a time, dreaming about the future while China quietly assembles it, one 21-minute module at a time. If this video gave you a clearer picture of just how far ahead China has pulled in the way it builds, hit the like button and subscribe so you do not miss what we cover next on this channel. And here's the question I want to leave you with. If China can build a skyscraper in 5 days and a bridge in a few hours, should America tear up its entire slow, tangled construction system and copy the Chinese model? Or is there something worth protecting in building the old, careful way? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one.